Dynasties. Do you remember when LeBron James was in South Beach and you had the big three with him, Bosh, and Wade? They won their first championship together when they beat OKC in the finals, and then they went back to back, beating the San Antonio Spurs. And at that point, there were a lot of people who thought that Miami was the next big bad dynasty in the NBA. And then they ended up matching up against the San Antonio Spurs in the finals for the second consecutive year in a row. And this time the Spurs were the team who came out on top. And the dynasty that we all thought was in the making down in Miami quickly fell apart. What about Alabama? When they went back to back, beating LSU, clobbering Notre Dame, did they ever three-peat and cement themselves as the big dynasty in college football? There's been a lot of talk about Kansas City becoming the next dynasty in the NFL, and I completely get why. You got Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the game right now, coming off his second MVP award. You have the best coach in the game, and Andy Reid, and you have a lot of talented players on both sides of the football. But there is one player that I think a lot of people are overlooking that is going to keep the Chiefs from becoming the dynasty that a lot of people feel they will become. And do you know who that player is? His name is Joe Burrow, a.k.a. Joe Burrow. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the game. He isn't the most athletically gifted quarterback in the NFL. And even though he's not number one at anything, he's top 5 at everything. And Joe Burrow right now is the closest thing that we have to Tom Brady in the league. He's cerebral. He's smart with the ball. Doesn't make a lot of bad decisions. He's fantastic when it comes to reading defenses. He has a really quick processor. As a matter of fact, I think he may be the best quarterback in the game when it comes to dissecting coverages and reading defenses. And the key to having success in winning games in the NFL is being able to take care of the football. Not only that, but Joe Burrow was the best fourth quarter quarterback in the NFL this past season. If you need a touchdown to win the game, you have 1:30 left on the clock in the fourth quarter with no timeouts. Out of all of the active quarterbacks in the game right now, who would you want underneath center leading that drive? I would want Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, in the few seasons that he's been in the NFL so far, he's been to 2 back-to-back AFC championship games and a Super Bowl. He went to the Super Bowl with probably the worst offensive line to ever go to the big dance. Joe Burrow is different. He's cut from a different cloth. The Cincinnati Bengals, they have a fantastic coaching staff. You got Brian Callahan, defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo coming back. You got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, that wide receiver, Joe Mixon. You got a pretty good defense. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be a thorn and Kansas City's behind when it comes to them getting that title of dynasty. Joe Burrow is just way too good of a quarterback just for him to allow Patrick Mahomes and company to just run through the AFC like it's nothing. The AFC is not the Eastern Conference in the NBA. Most of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now are in the AFC. So for Patrick Mahomes, not only is he going through some of the best teams in the league, but he also has to go through some of the best quarterbacks year after year to make it to the Super Bowl. And he's more than capable of doing that, but Joe Burrow and Cincinnati, they're just different. There's a reason why prior to Kansas City beating Cincinnati in the AFC Championship this past season, there's a reason why they were calling Arrowhead Stadium Burrowhead. Joe Burrow is 3-1 against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And they almost came close to beating them again this season and going 4-0. When it comes to the AFC running through Kansas City, I can agree with that. But I think for Kansas City to become the next dynasty, You got to be able to get through Joe Burrow. And of course, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, they're going to be there occasionally. But I think you're going to see more Mahomes, Burrow, AFC Conference Championship matchups than you're going to see any other potential rivalries or any potential quarterback matchups. The Bengals have a fantastic coaching staff. They've done a really good job at building up their roster. And the only thing they're really missing is a good offensive line, which they addressed that over the course of last offseason. But unfortunately, all those guys that they paid the big dollars to, they weren't able to stay fully healthy come playoff time. And that's why Cincinnati has been unable to win the Super Bowl. Once Cincinnati gets their offensive line situation taken care of, which they will have that taken care of next season, I think Cincinnati is going to start winning a couple of championships. Joe Burrow is just way too good of a quarterback to go his whole entire career without winning a Lombardi trophy. I love Mahomes. I think Mahomes is going to end up becoming the greatest quarterback of this generation, maybe the most talented quarterback ever, if you don't already consider him that. But I just find it really hard to overlook Joe Burrow. And am I a little bit biased? Just a tad bit, because Joe Burrow is my favorite player in the league. But I truly believe that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be the team that keeps Kansas City from becoming that dynasty that a lot of people envision them becoming. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, I think they're going to be the next great rivalry, not only in the National Football League, but in sports. Every time they play, it seems to be a classic. The games always come down to the wire. The games are normally decided by one possession or less. I think Joe Burrow, as long as he stays in the AFC with the Cincinnati Bengals, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have a hard time becoming the next big bad of the NFL.